Sometimes love comes into our lives like a bright flame, burning brightly. And then it's gone, leaving only the ashes of who we once were. But what if those ashes weren't the end? What if they were the beginning? Emma steps out into the cool evening air, her heart beating a little faster than usual. The city around her hums with the usual bustle of life, but tonight it feels different. There's a heaviness in the air, a weight she can't quite shake off, and yet there's a flicker of something else, something that almost feels like hope. She walks down the familiar streets, the sound of her boots tapping softly against the pavement, her mind replaying the words she just read. What if those ashes weren't the end? What if they were the beginning? It was a question she had never thought to ask before. She'd always believed that love, once lost, was gone forever, nothing more than memories and regrets left behind in its wake. But what if? Her thoughts drift off as she reaches the old bridge that spans the river, the one she used to visit with him. The bridge had witnessed their laughter, their tears, and their quiet moments. The wind sweeps through her hair, and she closes her eyes, taking in the scent of the water and the distant hum of the city. Emma hadn't realized how much she missed this place, the stillness it offered, the peace it gave her when everything else in life felt chaotic. Taking another deep breath, she pulls the letter from her bag, its creases from being folded tightly visible under the dim streetlight. She traces her fingers over the paper, her mind flickering back to the person who had written it, the one she thought she had lost forever. She smiles faintly, the corners of her lips tugging upward for the first time in what felt like ages. Maybe the ashes of the past weren't something to be afraid of. Maybe they were just the remnants of a love that had burned too brightly, too quickly, but had laid the foundation for something new, something different, something better. The sound of footsteps behind her pulls her from her reverie. She turns, her heart skipping a beat. A figure stands in the shadow of the bridge, their outline barely visible against the night. She knows who it is before they even speak. Emma. The voice is familiar, soft, but full of something more. She steps closer, the connection between them instantly feeling more intense than anything she'd felt in months. "I never thought I'd see you here again," the person says, a mixture of surprise and tenderness in their words. Her breath catches in her throat. "I wasn't sure I'd come back," she admits, her eyes not leaving his. The silence lingers, but it isn't uncomfortable. For the first time in a long while, Emma feels like maybe, just maybe, there's a chance to rebuild what was once lost. Or perhaps, as the letter suggested, she's not rebuilding at all. Maybe she's starting something entirely new, something she's ready for. "I guess we'll see," she says, her voice steady but full of possibility. And for the first time in a long time, Emma believes in beginnings, in second chances. She tucks the letter back into her bag and walks toward him, her heart open, her future unwritten. He steps closer, his gaze soft but steady, as though waiting for her to decide what comes next. The bridge creaks under the weight of the moment, and the hum of the city seems to fade into the background, leaving just the two of them, standing on the edge of what could be a new chapter. "You've changed," he says quietly, studying her face. "You feel different." Emma nods, running a hand through her hair. "I guess we all change over time, whether we want to or not." A small, almost sad smile crosses his lips. "I've been doing a lot of thinking, Emma. About us, about everything, about what went wrong." His voice falters just slightly, but it's enough to let her see the vulnerability beneath the surface. She takes a step forward, looking into his eyes with a mixture of curiosity and caution. "You don't have to apologize. We both made mistakes, didn't we?" His eyes widen slightly, as though he hadn't expected her to say that. He's silent for a long moment, absorbing her words. Then he exhales, as if letting go of a breath he didn't realize he was holding. "Maybe," he says softly. "But sometimes I wonder if we got too caught up in the idea of what we were supposed to be, instead of just being what we were in the moment. Maybe that's what we lost." Emma tilts her head, reflecting on his words. "I think I spent too long looking back, trying to hold on to what we were. I forgot that it's okay for things to change. People change. Love changes. A knowing look passes between them, one that tells her they're both standing in the same place, in different versions of themselves, yet still connected in ways they didn't fully understand. "I'm not asking for anything, Emma," he says, his voice low but sincere. "But I've realized that I don't want to keep living in the past anymore. Not with you, not with anyone." She glances down at the river, the moonlight reflecting off the water in delicate patterns. For a long time she thought she needed closure, that there had to be some grand explanation for why things fell apart. But now, standing here with him, she understands something deeper, that closure isn't always about understanding the past. Sometimes it's about accepting it for what it was and letting it go. "You don't have to ask for anything," she replies, meeting his gaze once more. "I think I'm starting to realize that too." The silence between them feels different now, softer, like a conversation unfolding without words. Emma takes a slow step forward, a quiet strength building within her. She's ready to embrace whatever comes next, whether it's with him or on her own. Because this time the ashes don't feel like a weight. They feel like the ground beneath her feet, solid and steady, waiting for the next step. "Maybe we can figure this out," she murmurs, her heart finally at peace with the uncertainty that lies ahead. "But maybe we don't need to rush it. Maybe we just see where it goes." He looks at her for a long moment, then nods, his lips curving into a gentle smile. "Yeah, maybe we do that." And for the first time, Emma feels the warmth of the future unfolding before her, no longer afraid of the unknown, but eager to discover what it holds. She steps forward, and as they walk side by side along the bridge, the past begins to fade into the distance, no longer a burden, but a part of her story, one chapter among many. A hesitant but hopeful expression on his face. "Do you think we're making the right choice?" he asks, his voice a little uncertain. There's no pressure in the question, just a quiet longing to understand her heart. Emma pauses, her hand resting lightly on the railing as she stares out at the river below. The moonlight shimmers on the surface, creating a path of light that seems to stretch infinitely into the horizon. She wonders for a moment if this is what it feels like to truly let go, to leave behind the heavy baggage of expectations and just be in the moment. "I think," she says slowly, "that we're figuring it out as we go. And that's okay." Her eyes meet his again, her expression open but grounded. Maybe the right choice isn't always clear. Maybe it's about being honest with where we are right now and trusting that wherever we go, it'll be the right place for us, even if we don't have it all figured out. He smiles, a little more genuine now, as if the vulnerability she's shown has given him the permission to do the same. "You always knew how to make things seem less complicated. Maybe it's because I spent too much time making things complicated myself." She laughs softly, the sound light and freeing. "I've learned that sometimes the simplest answer is the best one." They stand there for a moment, watching the river flow by, both of them caught in the quiet rhythm of the night. The world feels vast and full of possibilities, and yet, in this small pocket of time, everything feels perfectly right. "So," he says after a while, breaking the silence with a playful edge in his voice, "what happens now? Do we just start over?" There's a hint of humor in his tone, but the sincerity remains, as if he's testing the waters of a new beginning. Emma smiles, her heart lighter than it's been in a long time. "We don't have to start over. We just start. It's a new chapter, but it doesn't mean we're erasing everything that came before. It's about making something different, something better. Together or apart, it's up to us." He nods slowly, his expression thoughtful. "I like that. Starting without the weight of the past dragging us down." She looks up at him, her eyes steady and calm, but beneath it, there's a flicker of something more, a quiet promise. "Exactly. No pressure. Just what feels right." And with that, they reach the end of the bridge, standing at the threshold of whatever comes next. The city stretches out before them, the possibilities endless. Emma feels a surge of anticipation, but it's not the anxious, uncertain kind she's known before. It's a different feeling, one of hope and openness, a sense that the future, while unknown, holds more promise than she ever could have imagined. As they step off the bridge and onto the city streets, side by side, Emma knows that no matter what the future holds, she's ready to face it. She's learned that sometimes, the most important thing isn't having all the answers, it's having the courage to take the next step, even when you don't know where it will lead. And with him by her side, or even without him, she knows she'll be okay. She'll find her way, just like she always has. They walk in silence for a while, the hum of the city now blending with the soft shuffle of their footsteps on the pavement. The streetlights cast long shadows, their glow warm against the cool night. Emma notices how the world around them feels both familiar and new, as though everything has shifted subtly, as if the simple act of letting go has transformed the world itself. "I used to think I had to have everything figured out," he says after a while, breaking the quiet again. His voice is more at ease now, more certain in its honesty. "I thought if I could just get things right, if I could make the perfect decisions, it would all work out. But I don't know. Maybe the answers aren't in the perfect plans." Emma looks over at him, seeing the traces of someone who has carried a heavy burden, someone who has spent too long trying to control what can't be controlled. She smiles softly, the understanding in her eyes deep and knowing. "I think we both spent too much time trying to control things," she says quietly. "Trying to make sense of things that didn't make sense. Maybe it's time to just live, without all the pressure." He looks at her, and for the first time tonight, there's something like peace in his expression. It's as if he's finally letting go of the weight that's been pressing on him for so long. "Yeah," he agrees, his voice thoughtful. "Maybe it's about learning to trust. Not just each other but ourselves. That we can figure it out as we go." "Exactly." Emma nods, her steps steady as she matches his pace. "Life doesn't come with a map. We're all just trying to find our way, one step at a time." They pass a cafe, its windows glowing with warmth, and for a moment, Emma thinks of the comfort that comes with the simplest things, the shared silences, the fleeting moments of connection. It's not the grand gestures that matter most, she realizes, but the quiet understanding between two people who have been through enough to know what really matters. "Do you want to grab a coffee?" he asks, his tone light, almost casual, but there's an invitation in his words, an offer to just exist in this space for a little longer together. Emma hesitates for only a second before nodding. "Yeah, I'd like that." They step inside the cafe, the bell above the door chiming softly as they enter. The barista behind the counter greets them with a smile, and they order their drinks simple, comforting, nothing special, but in this moment it feels perfect. They find a small table by the window, sitting across from each other, the hum of quiet conversation and the clink of cups around them a soothing backdrop. As Emma sips her coffee, she feels the warmth spread through her chest, not just from the drink, but from the quiet connection they've shared, the shared understanding that whatever happens next, they don't need to have it all figured out. They can just be. "So," he says after a while, his voice low, "what do we do now?" She sets her cup down, meeting his gaze with a small smile. "We keep going. We don't have to know what the future holds. We just need to show up. For ourselves. For each other." He nods, his eyes softening with something that looks like relief. "Yeah, I think that's enough." And as they sit there in the quiet comfort of the cafe, Emma knows that this moment, just as it is a new beginning. It doesn't matter where the road ahead leads. What matters is that they've chosen to walk it together, not with expectations or plans, but with an openness to whatever might come, knowing that they've already let go of the past, and in doing so, have made space for something new. The future is still a mystery, but for the first time, it doesn't feel like something to fear. Feels like something to embrace. And that's enough for now. Emma stares at her phone for a moment, her finger hovering over the screen. Sophia's words hang in the air, soft but insistent. "The next chapter is waiting for you." It sounds so simple, like the answer to everything, but Emma isn't sure she's ready to turn the page just yet. She pulls the phone away from her ear, her thumb scrolling aimlessly over the old photos, memories that feel like they belong to someone else. She can almost feel the weight of the past pressing down on her, those moments, those versions of herself that seem so distant now. The life she used to have, the person she used to be. Sophia's voice breaks through the silence again, louder this time, like a lifeline. Emma, I know things have been tough, but you're allowed to move on. You don't have to be stuck in what's already happened. I know you're scared, but you're stronger than you realize. I promise you a weekend away could help. Just get out of the city for a bit. Emma looks around her apartment, the stillness of it all, the neat but impersonal space that doesn't quite feel like home anymore. She hasn't been able to shake the feeling of emptiness since everything changed. Since the bridge. Since the conversation with him. I don't know, Soph, Emma says, her voice quiet. I'm not sure I can just forget everything. Move on like it's nothing. Sophia's laugh is warm, gentle, like it's meant to pull her back to reality. I'm not asking you to forget. I'm asking you to let go. Just for a weekend. A little break from the past. No one's saying you have to forget. You're just opening yourself to something else, something new. You deserve that. Emma stares at the photo of herself from a few years ago, her smile bright, her eyes full of hope. She feels a pang in her chest, but it's not the kind of pain she used to feel. It's different now. It's more like a soft ache, something she can breathe through, something that isn't impossible to overcome. I guess it wouldn't hurt to get away for a bit, Emma says finally, her tone hesitant but lighter. Maybe a change of scenery will help. Sophia lets out a small cheer, her voice laced with relief. Yes, that's the spirit. We'll do something fun, no pressure. Just take it easy. You need a break from being, well, you know, the old Emma. She chuckles, and Emma can't help but smile at the familiar sound of her best friend's voice. Feels like a reminder of a time before everything got so complicated. Emma looks around the apartment once more. Maybe Sophia's right. Maybe she's been isolating herself too much. She's been hiding from the world, from the future, from what's next. All right, I'm in, Emma finally says, the words feeling a little lighter as she speaks them aloud. Let's do it. Sophia lets out a whoop of excitement. Yes, you're going to love it. Just wait. I'll book us a cabin by the lake. You and me, no distractions, just nature and fresh air. Trust me, it'll be perfect. Emma smiles, her heart a little warmer than it had been in a while. Sounds good. I guess I could use a little fresh air. The next few days are a blur of packing and last-minute errands. Emma finds herself almost excited about the idea of stepping out of the life she's been holding on to. She can't escape the past, but maybe, just maybe, she can create space for something new. For something she hasn't quite figured out yet. The morning of their departure, she stands in front of the mirror, staring at her reflection. She doesn't look like the same person who walked away from the bridge months ago, but she doesn't look like the person she used to be either. There's something different in her eyes now, a softness, a quiet strength that wasn't there before. Maybe it's okay to not know who I am yet, she thinks. Maybe it's okay to be in between, to not have everything figured out. As she grabs her bag and heads out the door, she takes one last look at her apartment, at the stillness she's grown accustomed to. For the first time in a long while, she feels ready to walk away from it. Not forever, but for now. When she meets Sophia at the car, there's an unspoken understanding between them. Sophia's been through her own share of struggles, but today, she's the one holding the space for Emma. They're both figuring things out, and they're doing it together. As they drive out of the city, the skyline shrinking in the rearview mirror, Emma feels something inside her shift, a small, subtle shift, but it's there. The future is still unknown, but for the first time, she doesn't feel afraid of it. She's not the same person she was before. And maybe that's exactly what she needed to be. They head toward the lake, and Emma leans her head back against the seat, letting herself relax, even just a little. The road ahead is long, but with Sophia beside her, she's not walking it alone. And maybe that's enough for now. The drive to the cabin is long, but the winding roads through the countryside offer a sense of calm that Emma hasn't felt in what seems like forever. The city, with its constant hum and pressure, fades into the background, replaced by the quiet rhythm of the world outside the car. The rolling hills, the towering trees, the occasional glimpse of a deer in the distance, all of it feels like a slow exhale, like nature is inviting her to take a breath and just be. Sophia glances over at her, catching her lost expression. "You doing okay?" she asks gently, her tone always a little lighter when she senses Emma's inner struggle. Emma nods, though she's still working through the emotions inside her. "Yeah, think I am. Just... this feels different. Peaceful almost. I don't know. Like I can let go for a second." Sophia smiles knowingly. "That's the point. You're not meant to have everything figured out right now. You just need to exist in this moment, without the pressure." The rest of the drive passes in comfortable silence, broken only by the occasional remark about the view or some random memory they share. Emma can feel herself relaxing with each mile. She doesn't know how much of this peace is the quiet of the countryside or the absence of expectations, but it doesn't matter. For once, she's not rushing toward something, she's just letting things unfold. Finally, the car pulls up to the cabin. It's a modest little place, tucked away at the edge of a small lake, surrounded by trees that look as though they've stood there for centuries. The wooden structure has an inviting, rustic charm, with a stone chimney that promises warmth inside. Emma steps out of the car, breathing in the crisp air, feeling the weight of the world momentarily lift from her shoulders. There's something about this place, something rooted and grounding that feels like it could be a second chance. Sophia jumps out of the car with energy, grabbing their bags. "I'll get the fire going," she says, already moving toward the cabin's entrance. "You just breathe. Take it all in." Emma watches her for a moment, then turns her gaze toward the lake. The surface is smooth like glass, reflecting the trees and the pale sky above. She steps closer to the water, letting her fingers brush the cool surface as she looks out at the horizon. For a moment, it feels as though time has slowed down, and all the noise in her head has quieted. "You know," she says softly to herself, "I've always loved the water. It's peaceful. Everything just flows, no effort, no resistance." She watches the small ripples she's created from touching the water. "Maybe I need to be more like that." Sophia joins her at the water's edge, carrying a bottle of wine and 2 glasses. She hands one to Emma and clinks her glass against hers. "To new beginnings, or at least the possibility of them," she says with a grin. Emma takes a sip, the cool wine grounding her as she lets the quiet of the surroundings sink into her bones. She glances at Sophia, and for the first time in a long while, she feels like she's exactly where she needs to be. Not with answers, but with a willingness to just be. "Thanks for this," Emma says quietly, her voice filled with gratitude. "I didn't realize how much I needed to just stop, to breathe." Sophia smiles, a little wink in her eye. "You don't need to thank me. I know you. This was what you needed. Little space. A little time." They sit in comfortable silence for a while, watching the way the last rays of the sun dance across the surface of the water, turning it into a sea of shimmering gold. The world feels so far away from everything Emma's been carrying, and for once, it feels like that's okay. Later, the evening draws in, and the cabin is warm with the crackling of the fire. Sophia prepares dinner, the scent of garlic and herbs filling the air. Emma lounges on the couch, gazing out the window at the darkening sky. There's something about the stillness of the night that makes her feel small in a way that's comforting. The stars are brighter here, untarnished by city lights, and for the first time in a long while, Emma feels like she's just one small part of something vast and beautiful. Sophia joins her, setting down 2 plates of food. "How about tomorrow we go for a hike? There's a trail up the mountain. You've always loved the views." Emma smiles at the thought of it, the idea of moving, of being in nature and not just observing it from the window. "Yeah, that sounds good. I think I need that." Sophia grins, clearly pleased with the idea. "It's settled then. Tomorrow we hike. But tonight," she says with a dramatic pause, "we eat and relax. No talk of the past, no talk of what comes next. Just this." Emma laughs softly, finally feeling the weight of the world lift. She takes a bite of her dinner, savoring the moment, and lets the warmth of the fire wrap around her like a blanket. The night stretches on, quiet and easy. As Emma leans back in her seat, looking out at the stars, she feels something stir inside her, something deep, something hopeful. Maybe she's not ready for the future yet, but she's learning to be okay with that. And maybe, just maybe, the next chapter is waiting for her. Not because she's ready for it, but because she's finally beginning to let go. And in letting go, she's allowing space for something new to unfold. Sophia walks up beside her. Her smile a mixture of understanding and warmth. She doesn't say anything at first, just stands next to her, letting the silence speak its own language. Emma turns her head slightly, her eyes still fixed on the horizon. I thought I had to have everything figured out, that there was some timeline I had to follow, that I should have been okay by now. But maybe healing isn't something you can rush. Maybe it's more like this. She gestures to the ocean, the endless ebb and flow of the tide. A slow process. Something you can't control. Sophia nods, her voice soft but steady. You're right. There's no rush to heal, Emma. It's okay to take the time you need. You're already doing the hardest part, letting yourself feel, letting yourself breathe. Most people get caught up trying to outrun their pain, but you're not doing that anymore. You're moving through it. Emma's lips quirk upward at the thought. Moving through it. I like that. I guess I never thought of it that way. They walk along the shoreline, the wind tugging at their clothes, each step leaving a temporary mark in the sand. The sound of the waves grows louder, but Emma doesn't mind it. For the first time in a long time, the noise outside feels distant, as if it belongs to someone else's life, not hers. As they walk, Sophia points to a small cafe by the beach. How about some coffee? The place is cozy, and the view is pretty perfect. Emma nods, grateful for the distraction, for the opportunity to sit down and just exist in this new place. I think that sounds perfect. The cafe is exactly as Sophia describes, small, warm, and inviting. The walls are lined with wooden shelves filled with books and trinkets from local artists, and the scent of freshly brewed coffee mingles with the salty air that drifts in through the open windows. They settle into a corner booth by the window, where they can see the water stretching out to the horizon. Sophia orders their drinks, and Emma stares out at the beach, the ocean waves moving in and out, carrying with them a strange sense of peace. She feels lighter here, the weight of the past not as heavy as it had been in the city. Maybe it's the change in scenery, or maybe it's the way the world seems to breathe in time with her own pulse, but something feels different. She feels like she can let go of all the expectations, all the demands she's placed on herself, and simply be. Do you ever think about going back? Sophia asks, as she stirs her coffee. Her voice is curious, not probing, just an honest question. Emma thinks for a moment. Back to the city? Or back to who I was? Sophia shrugs, her eyes soft. Either. Both. Emma exhales slowly, her gaze drifting from the water to the soft light filtering through the windows. I don't know. Sometimes I think about it. About what my life used to be like before everything changed. I wonder if I'll ever go back to being that person, or if that part of me is lost forever. You know, Sophia says thoughtfully, I don't think it's about going back. It's about finding a new version of yourself. You're not meant to be the same person you were before, Emma. You've lived through things. You've changed and you'll keep changing. But the best parts of you, they're still there. The person you are now, she's just different. And that's okay. Emma looks down at her hands, the cup of coffee warming her fingers. I think I'm starting to believe that. I've spent so long thinking that I had to fit into the shape of the person I used to be. But maybe there's more room to breathe now. Maybe that person was just a chapter. A chapter that was important, but not the whole story. Sophia smiles, her eyes bright with the quiet understanding only a best friend can offer. Exactly. You're just writing the next chapter now. And this time you get to decide how it goes. No pressure, no expectations. Just you. Emma nods slowly, the weight of her words sinking in. She's always been afraid of the unknown, of stepping into a future without a clear roadmap. But maybe that's the point. Maybe it's okay to let go of the idea of control, of knowing what's next. The ocean doesn't fight the waves, it lets them come and go. trusting that they'll eventually lead somewhere new, somewhere beautiful. She looks out the window again, her eyes lingering on the sun dipping low on the horizon, painting the sky in shades of pink and orange. The beach is quiet now, the rush of the day settling into a gentle calm. In this moment, Emma feels hopeful. Not for anything specific, but just for the fact that she is here, in this place, with someone who understands. The past will always be a part of her, but she's beginning to understand that it doesn't have to define her. She turns back to Sophia, a soft smile curving her lips. "You're right. I'm not lost. I'm just in between." Sophia raises her cup, a playful glint in her eye. To the in-between, then. To figuring it out one step at a time. Emma clinks her cup gently against Sophia's, and for the first time in what feels like forever, she feels lighter, freer, like she's not just surviving anymore, but truly living. The gentle chime of the bell above the bookstore door rings as Emma steps inside, greeted by the comforting scent of old paper and the quiet rustle of pages. The shop is cozy, with narrow aisles lined with shelves overflowing with books of all kinds. Emma runs her fingers along the spines, the weight of each book a silent reminder of the stories people have told, stories that are sometimes messy, sometimes painful, but always meaningful. She's not sure what drew her into the bookstore today. Maybe it was the quiet, the shelter it promised from the rest of the world. Or maybe it was the idea of a fresh conversation, something that didn't involve her trying to figure everything out. As she drifts through the aisles, her fingers grazing over the books, she notices a man in the corner, hunched over a table, sorting through a stack of paperbacks. He's in his early 40s, with dark hair that's starting to gray at the temples, a bit of stubble along his jaw, and a kind expression that doesn't seem forced. He looks up as she wanders closer, offering a soft smile. "Finding something interesting?" he asks, his voice warm and inviting. Emma hesitates for a moment before answering, the air in the shop quiet, almost expectant. "I'm not sure. Just browsing, I guess. I've been thinking a lot about things. And I don't know, books always help me sort through my thoughts." Liam nods, his expression sympathetic. They have a way of doing that, don't they? Sometimes, the right book can feel like someone speaking right to you, even when no one else can. She meets his gaze, feeling something in his words resonate with the parts of her she's been trying to understand. Yeah, it's funny how a story can make you feel less alone. Like maybe someone else has walked through what you're walking through. He studies her for a moment, his eyes not probing but understanding, like he's seen that exact feeling before. It's the beauty of stories. They let us see ourselves in others, and in the process, they remind us that we're not alone in our struggles. Emma exhales softly, the weight of her thoughts pressing a little heavier today than usual. "I've been trying to figure out how to move on. I don't know. I don't even know if I can." Liam's smile is soft, filled with quiet understanding. Love can be a cruel teacher sometimes, but also one of the best. We learn to build ourselves back up, even when we feel like we've lost everything. But the thing is, moving forward doesn't mean forgetting what came before. It just means that we carry those lessons with us, without letting them weigh us down. Emma lets out a small breath, feeling the weight of his words settle over her like a soft, warm blanket. "I don't know if I'm strong enough to start over. Every time I think about moving on, I feel guilty. Like I'm betraying what we had. Like letting go means I'm forgetting." Liam picks up a book from the counter and flips it open, as if contemplating his next words carefully. "What you had isn't something that disappears just because you move forward. It's part of you, shaped who you are. But here's the thing. Holding on too tightly to the past can keep you stuck. And sometimes being stuck in the past isn't honoring it, it's letting it control you. Moving forward doesn't mean abandoning everything you've learned, everything you've loved. It means giving yourself the space to grow, even if it feels like the most difficult thing in the world." Emma's gaze drifts to the shelves again, the words swirling in her mind, trying to make sense of the feelings that seem too large to put into words. "I guess I just feel like I should have more answers by now. That I should be able to walk away from it, to stop looking back." Liam gives a soft chuckle, the sound kind but not mocking. We all wish for answers, don't we? But sometimes the best answer is to simply give yourself permission to not have all the answers. Healing isn't linear. It doesn't look the same for everyone, and it sure as hell doesn't happen on anyone's timetable. But the fact that you're even trying to heal, that's strength. She lets his words sink in, a flicker of something stirring within her, a spark of realization that maybe, just maybe, it's okay to not have it all figured out. Maybe it's okay to let things take their time. I've been so scared of moving on, Emma says quietly, her voice almost to herself now. But maybe moving on isn't something I have to force. Maybe it's something that happens when I stop trying to control it, when I just allow myself to feel the pain and then let it pass. Liam gives a slight nod, the understanding in his eyes deepening. Exactly. And when you're ready, you'll step into the next chapter. Not because you've figured everything out, but because you've given yourself the grace to keep going. The way you move forward won't be perfect, but it'll be yours. And that's enough. Emma stands there for a moment, taking in the stillness of the bookstore, the weight of Liam's words settling over her. For the first time in a long while, she doesn't feel as if she's rushing towards some unattainable version of herself. She's beginning to understand that maybe the beauty of healing isn't about finding closure, it's about learning to live with the parts of her that are still broken, still healing and still growing. She looks back at Liam, offering him a small but sincere smile. Thank you. I didn't expect to come in here and find that. Liam smiles in return, a glimmer of kindness in his eyes. Sometimes the right words find us when we least expect it. And sometimes a good book is all it takes to remind us that we're not alone in this world. Emma laughs softly, the sound lighter than it's been in a while. She feels in this moment as though she's taken a step toward something she hadn't quite known she was searching for. Maybe it's not about the destination or the answers. Maybe it's about giving herself permission to just be, to feel, and to let time do its work. As she leaves the bookstore, a small sense of peace settles in her chest, like a whisper of a new beginning, waiting for her when she's ready to step into it. She looks out toward the shore, where the waves crash in rhythmic patterns, and for the first time in a long while, she doesn't feel so lost. She feels like she's moving forward, even if she doesn't know exactly where it's leading. As the last rays of sunlight dip below the horizon, the sky bursts into hues of pink and orange, painting the clouds in a way that feels almost magical. Emma takes a deep breath, feeling the cool evening air fill her lungs. She lets the silence linger for a moment, her gaze fixed on the horizon, lost in thought. Sophia glances at Emma, her expression soft and understanding. She had seen Emma struggle for so long, weighed down by the past, afraid to move forward. But tonight, something in her friend had shifted. There was a quiet strength in her now, a flicker of hope that hadn't been there before. Sophia breaks the silence, her voice gentle. Sophia. It's funny, isn't it? How we can get so caught up in our pain that we forget the beauty that's still around us. I think that's the thing about healing. It doesn't always happen in big, dramatic moments. Sometimes it's the small, quiet ones that make the biggest difference. Emma nods slowly, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. She doesn't say anything at first, just takes in the tranquility around her. After a few moments she speaks, her voice barely above a whisper. Emma, I never thought I'd be here, you know? I thought the pain would always be this heavy. But maybe it's okay to not have everything figured out. Maybe it's okay to just take things one step at a time. Sophia smiles, a small but reassuring smile. Sophia. Exactly. You don't have to rush it. There's no timeline for healing. Just take it as it comes. They sit together in companionable silence, the only sounds being the rustling of leaves in the breeze and the distant chirp of crickets. The sky above them deepens into a rich shade of indigo, the stars beginning to twinkle faintly in the vast expanse. After a while, Emma shifts, her hand brushing against Sophia's. It's a simple gesture, but it speaks volumes, a quiet connection, a silent acknowledgement of the bond they share. Emma. Thank you, Sophia, for being here. For letting me take my time. Sophia squeezes her hand gently, her voice filled with warmth. Sophia, I'll always be here, Em. No matter what. As the evening stretches on, they stay there side by side, watching as the night fully settles in. Emma feels a sense of peace she hasn't felt in a long time. The weight of the past still lingers, but it no longer feels as suffocating. For the first time in a long while, she feels like she's moving forward, not perfectly, but surely. And for now, that's enough. Her footsteps are steady as she walks, the weight of the past lightened with every step. She crosses the street, her mind already moving toward the next chapter of her life. Her thoughts drift to the possibilities of what's to come. She hasn't figured out every detail yet, but for the first time in a long while, she feels ready to embrace the unknown. She heads toward the small park by the river, where she used to go when she needed a break from everything. It's quieter there, a little pocket of peace amidst the chaos of the city. She sits on one of the benches overlooking the water, watching the ducks glide by. Her fingers trace the rim of her coffee cup as she reflects on everything that has led her here. Her phone buzzes in her pocket. It's a message from her best friend, Sarah. Sarah texts, "How are you really?" Emma smiles, typing a quick reply. Emma texts, "I'm good. Better than good, actually. I think I've finally figured things out. Taking it one day at a time." She hits send and leans back on the bench, eyes closing for a moment. She's no longer haunted by the past. The heartbreak, the mistakes, the missteps, they were all part of her journey. She knows she's stronger now, wiser, and ready to build something new. As she opens her eyes, she sees a figure walking toward her. It's Liam again, carrying a bag from a local bookshop. "Didn't expect to see you here," he says with a smile as he sits down next to her. Emma chuckles softly. It's a good spot for thinking, or not thinking at all. Liam looks out over the river, nodding. "I get that. Sometimes, all we need is a little space to breathe." She glances at him, her smile softening. "Thanks for the cafe chat earlier. I needed that." Shrugs. Sometimes, all it takes is someone reminding you that you're not alone. They sit in companionable silence for a while, the city moving around them. The peace between them feels comfortable, easy. Emma feels an unexpected sense of contentment, not just in her own journey but in the connections she's making along the way. As the afternoon sun begins to dip lower in the sky, Emma stands up, brushing off her jeans. She turns to Liam with a grin. "I've got a few things to do, but I'll see you around." Liam nods. "Definitely." With a final wave, Emma walks off, her heart lighter than it's been in a long time. She knows she's not just moving forward physically. Emotionally, she's starting a whole new chapter, one that's hers to shape. As the city street buzzes with life around her, Emma steps into the future with confidence. The road ahead may be uncertain, but for the first time, she feels ready to meet whatever comes with open arms.